Okay, so we're going to go over a couple of questions today, and to talk through them. So the first question is, I'm having problems shifting my identity from my past to who I actually want to be. How do I change this, or what do I do?
I wonder if this is something that needs that you kind of need to wait. Like actually doing the actions.
Hmm.
If I put that into how I transition from one job to
Chapter.
another with with training in there. So the training I was training whilst I was working as a self-employed cleaner. And during the process of training, the there was a transition in my mind about who I was going to be. Still, there would have been a whole lot of stuff around. Am I going to get there? Or no, I knew I was going to get there actually, but more like some anticipation about how it's going to be. And then, but by the time you've been through the whole process, this is why I really recommend education for recovery from anything in the way of trauma or issues that you might have had in your life generally. Something like education. It could be your own research, something that's you sort of identify yourself that you want to get to the bottom of, or but I find that there's something about that process that's really builds confidence.
Yeah, and evidence, because you're
Yeah.
going from one person to another person, but all you've ever known is this person. So
Yes.
if unless you, like you said, it takes time because it does take a period of time because you have to build that action
Yeah.
of the doing of this new version or this new chapter.
Yeah.
And in that time and action, the evidence is then built that actually you are that person and you no longer need to act in that
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine this is difficult for people who maybe feel like they mask a lot. So maybe there's a struggle with being who they are generally anyway. So to imagine having to change would be another load of effort and kind of further masking.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm thinking about people who describe masking because if they're neurodivergent or got a autism diagnosis, where they feel like just being around other people is quite a strain, and that what they need to do is kind of be a particular person in order to not kind of cause any alert or any attention drawn to them. And they describe that as masking. And when they get home, they can kind of peel off the mask and be their normal self. And they might even say their normal weird self, something that they think's different from others. I'd imagine that would be even more difficult because that's also somebody who would find change tricky. So there would be people who struggle with change. So maybe there's something deeper there, which is about, you know, um, change is difficult, and especially or definitely when it is associated with personal change.
Okay, so like for somebody that is masking, it's almost like that masking is they don't enjoy it and it takes up time and energy. So when they come back to being themselves in that safe space where they're comfortable, the thought of like changing to like not better themselves, but like make progress or growth
Yeah,
seems like
development.
too much hard work because they know how much hard work that is.
Yeah, because they're already doing that in a smaller, for a shorter period per day to
Yeah,
go to work, to function
yeah,
in society that where they feel quite alien from. Yeah.
yeah. So it's almost like stuck, maybe would be like
Yeah.
that word. So just off the top of my head there, um, from my own experience, was when I like made like quite a drastic change. I cut myself off from most of my normal things to have that quiet, to actually not have impact or influence from things that I would normally have it from. Would you suggest like, and I know it's not great to like cut yourself off, um, and I didn't do it in a severe way, but I just reduced the amount of energy, I guess, that I had to give out and give myself as much quiet space as possible to
Mm.
do that in. So maybe that would be like, again, everyone's completely different on their completely different journeys, but understanding what you need, I guess, to make that change would be the one of the first steps that I needed, and not
Yeah,
being afraid to give it to yourself, maybe.
yeah, yeah. And that reminds me a little bit of if somebody wants to give up tobacco, they're not going to hang out with their friends that smoke tobacco. So it's like taking that time to adjust
Hmm.
before being the person who's actually now not a smoker. And then they
Yeah,
can reintegrate with their friends and be the person who now doesn't smoke. But while they've got the withdrawal and the nicotine, sort of the desire for nicotine, they're going to find that really difficult to be around smokers.
yeah. So you've got to build that, like you've got to remove yourself from that environment, build up your strength, build up your
Yeah,
like processes, your systems, your habits, and
yeah,
then once you've got that evidence that you're no longer that person, you can actually put yourself back in that environment with that strength and evidence that that's no longer you. This is actually who you are, and you
yeah.
probably find that you won't actually want to go back into that environment because it no longer serves
Mm,
you.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I think about how this was for me with my journey, I can still go back to being a cleaner. I
Hmm.
don't want to do it full time, but I can go and, uh, it's not that I'm 100% this other person now. I can still be fluid in it. I can
Hmm.
still be somebody who'll go and clean somebody's house and be fine with that.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's not a negative habit that you have, and it
yeah,
wasn't having
yeah,
a negative impact on you.
yeah. I just wouldn't want to do it all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you value what you do more than that.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. So next question is, how do I learn to be comfortable on my own and avoid jumping into relationships too quickly?
So I would wonder what it is that somebody gets from a relationship in order to want to be in one all the time. So, it's not that I'm saying there's something wrong with that. I don't mean that. I mean, identify what it is that is the most important thing to you about being in relationship. Because
Mhm.
I got into when I saw this question, I got into thinking, um, what most people would want, which is somebody to do things with, or that sort of like close person companion. But that might be different for everybody. Somebody else might say, "Oh, I'm really happy with a long distance relationship actually, and I like to get on with my own thing. But I love to have that person that I can connect to if I want to, or that I really enjoy the times when I'm with them." So it's important to identify what it is about being in relationship that is so important to you, and then think about how can I meet that need in another way.
Mhm.
So say it's having social interaction and connection with people, which most people need,
Yeah,
build that, and I know that's easier said than done because it takes time to build friendships and community and people that you can trust. So I'm not suggesting it's a quick fix, but there's other ways to mix with people where you don't need the trust, which is like joining groups, maybe a walkers group or a yoga group or something where put things in the calendar that give you social connection without there necessarily needing to be a massive commitment of
yeah,
trust.
yeah.
um so that's one way I was thinking about it, how to be good on your own. um there's other aspects of that, like becoming more resilient. So what does it take to be more resilient? Well, that might mean physical strength, physical resilience. And then like if you combine that with something mindful, meditation or breath work, you might find that gives you more resilience so that there isn't this kind of dependency on another, so that you can be more independent yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I was trying to think, that's the way that I thought with that. that it's actually identifying what it is that you really get from a relationship that you
And then
miss.
how can you give that to yourself without needing that external? So it's
Yeah,
almost like really, really going in and thinking, okay, why can't I be on my own? Like what like does that person give to me that then like makes me feel comfortable? Like,
yeah.
and then how can I give myself that without needing that person to then be able to sit on my own and be in that same space mentally, like happiness or contentment or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, and then I guess it's also looking at like if you are in that relationship, um, and you don't want to be on your own, but you're in that relationship when you've jumped into it and it's not actually a happy place or content place, then like identifying those things and then how do you stop repeating that pattern and how like what are the negatives that you feel and getting back from that and your gut feelings and I guess listening to all of
Really?
that and then trusting yourself in that next decision.
Definitely, because once you've identified what it is you need from a relationship, you'll also be able to identify what it is that stops you leaving one.
Yeah,
So therefore, if there's a fear of being alone because really hate being alone Friday night, for instance, then it's working with that, isn't it? It's identifying that and then putting something in place for that, or at least having that in awareness. So you know that Friday nights are difficult, so you're going to do something different.
yeah,
I also wonder if this jumping into relationship is comes from the ease of using a dating app because I wonder if that and whether there's something there that's slightly addictive because it's a dopamine thing.
dopamine, yes, that is definitely a connection there, isn't there? Because it's that
Mm,
quick, instant, fast, like
mm,
satisfy my need
mm,
without thinking actually long term, this is the need. How can I
mm.
get that long term without this quick dopamine?
And how can I also go like so if it is about that being some a hit, a dopamine hit, um, because I would say that there's one way of looking at that where you could say, well, don't actually get into a relationship, but make some friends or make some connections or use the app to keep you sort of active in that way, but put boundaries on yourself, i.e.,
Yeah,
you go too fast, I'm going to pace this, I might meet somebody, I might put a limit on how many people I meet a month, or but but I would say that the problem is with the dating app is that it keeps that part of your brain completely active in hope of meeting somebody that will be just right because there is always another person to be looking at. It's always that swipe, another person to be looking at. So even if you've had a great connection with somebody, but then that's ended, that person's not in communication anymore, that's fine because there's another person. And I think that's the unhealthy thing with a dating app is that it doesn't actually allow the brain to process being on your own very well because it kind of got the door open for the next relationship
all the time. Yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
And if you think about how people might be addicted to their phones anyway, if you've then got an app there which is giving you a dopamine as whether or not you've had a match or a text or a
yeah.
opportunity.
It's that instant validation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so um, it's almost like in those situations, especially if you're somebody that struggles to be on their own, gets into relationships that might seem great at first, and then that need is met, and then afterwards it's like, well, actually, this is the reality of it, and then it's almost like putting in like phased stages.
Mm,
So, okay, at this time, this relationship has ended. I'm actually not allowed to go on that app until this day. And I've got to work like for the next 4 weeks on myself
mm,
rather than just go straight in. So it's slowly putting in again those steps, isn't it? It's like
yeah.
whether it's 4 weeks, whether it's 4 days, like depending on the like current relationship, it's working out a process that delays that gratification a little bit longer each time. So then you have that time to then process, work out actually what it is and why you're doing these things and then coming back. Okay. And then again that takes like that first initial awareness, doesn't it?
That's right, absolutely, 100%.
Okay. So, next question is, when I'm feeling low or down, why do I always fall back to bad habits such as drinking, eating, um, like shopping online, um, when I know it's not when I know it's not actually what I want to be doing. So it's like that low feeling, down, and then that instant again. It's that instant gratification, isn't it? I guess.
Sounds like, yeah, it sounds like that's like that those are coping mechanisms
Hmm.
that used to work. Even if they didn't work very long term, they might be short term dopamine or result or feeling that works. But then, if you're drinking or eating rubbish or shopping online, well, shopping online, that could be okay if you're buying what you need. But most people who've got a problem with shopping online or wherever, or shopping generally, if that's a problem, they're buying stuff they don't need. So it's only a short term hit. Drinking's a classic, isn't it? Because then most people will struggle the next day, so they lose quality of their time. Their day is sort of there's a consequence to that the following day. So those are old coping mechanisms, and so it's building the new coping mechanisms in order to put them in place when you're feeling low or down,
Hmm.
and that might mean that you need to leave yourself something around that tells you if you're feeling low, you need to do this, a reminder in some way. And we're talking again, it's about steps. It's not going to be some huge, no recovery is hardly ever linear. So it's not going to be like I just get on this path, I keep going, and I never look back and I never experience what I used to experience. It's going to be much more few steps forward, hopefully one step back, two
Yeah.
steps back. But the idea is that a lot of people will, like, it's a classic with an abusive relationship because often people will leave their abusive partner many times. So they might leave them, then start to feel the vulnerability or feeling low or down, and then go back to that person. And then relearn, remind themselves that's not actually working, that's not actually what they needed, and come back and do it again. So people, and then get on their own again. So it's like that thing of like, it's a process,
Yeah.
but you get to the end of that process when you feel good enough of like by changing those coping mechanisms. So that needs awareness, doesn't it? Because if you can bring awareness when you're feeling low or down and remind yourself that, okay, if I have that drink, I'm only going to feel worse tomorrow.
Hmm.
But some people, yeah, I'd say, it's all about awareness really, because then it's that stops you doing that next step, isn't it? That's okay,
Yeah.
so it's not actually going to help me.
I think
Um,
in that process as well, like what you said, it's not linear. It is that like slow, steady up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's understanding that that is the way because a lot of people see it as that linear. Like
mm,
I've got to do this and I've got to stop this, and like if that one drink happens or if that like I start eating that thing, everything's ruined and I'm just like that person. So it's
yeah.
understanding, like having that awareness that it's things are not going to be 100% all the
Mm,
time and
mm,
allowing that to take place and as the stages go on, whether like I don't know, say you have 10 drinks a night every single night and then you like start to become aware, start to
mm.
put things in place, reduce the drink or cut the drink out, and then something bad happens and then you pick up the drink again, that is likely going to happen before you can get to the space
That's
where it
right.
doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. So there's something there about managing expectations,
Hmm.
reducing the harsh inner critic. Where's that
Yeah.
harsh inner critic coming? There's going like, now you've done it to yourself again, and
Yeah,
moving over
so
there.
it's reframing that exact conversation in your head, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because I've done it
absolutely.
before. Oh, you idiot, you've done this, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, okay, why did that happen? Like, what things were in play here? Like, how can I do that different next time? It's like
Mm,
literally changing that in a
mm,
voice, isn't it?
it is, and there's something in there that makes me think of being like, like somehow connected to the failure. So like being comfortable with going back to feeling like a failure, and that comes with feeling hungover or feeling crap from food that you've eaten that you wished you hadn't eaten. It kind of connects to now I can be, now I can have failed. I don't know, that's what I just picked up that there, that there's something about the habit of being a failure that you're reaffirming by doing that, feeling bad. Because it almost felt, when you just said that, it almost felt inevitable that somebody would have to beat themselves up for having done all those things, rather than have the expectation that well, that was going to happen. And I wonder if, the day after is when you get to that point of going, okay, I see that that was my part of my recovery process, but immediately afterwards would probably come that whole disappointment in
Yeah,
self.
yeah, it's allowing that time in between the act
Yeah,
and the yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so it then again it comes down to that like not being linear, being aware, and then like the actions you take will eventually like move you to where you want to be, and
yeah,
then like that understanding that it's not going to be an easy journey, it is going to be actually quite difficult.
yeah, that's right. Back to self-compassion, isn't
Yeah,
it? If
yeah,
you want to get somewhere, you've got to be kind to yourself, as well as put in the structure, put in the boundaries, put in the positivity, put in the motivation, be motivated for it, but
yeah,
got to
yeah,
be some compassion in there.
yeah, yeah. There's yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay, thank you for that. That's perfect, and see you next week.
Okay, brilliant. Lovely to see you,
Brilliant.
George.
You too. Bye bye.